I'm here to tell you the buyers have told us the journey and they don't want vendors to be part of it. They want to come to our site. They want to do their own research and they want to find content on their own. So to me, if you have a prospect that's come to your website, I want to educate them as much as possible with as few barriers as possible. Take a stance with your brand. It doesn't have to be really dramatic, but you have to have a point of view. You should be using your executives and subject matter experts in your company, because you're still marketing to people, is really building part of your marketing engine around showing who your company is, showing the people, so your audience feels like they can connect, they understand what you're about, they know what this company and this brand is about, and no other company can replicate that. I think a real key to help with scaling is being truly aligned with the sales team. That I find is a thread that comes up over and over again, is having that alignment and understanding how you're going to go to market together. I'm huge on repurposing because, even with the advent of AI helping us pump out more content, I think you still just really get a lot out of leveraging content. You have to be investing in video. I think that's just a given. And that's also something you can repurpose quite a bit. You can use that on obviously LinkedIn. YouTube is its own kind, comes up in search. It's something that's a great place to share content. So if I had to really pick one, it would be video, but I think really repurposing and leveraging your content for all different channels is really what you need to be doing.
So let's get started. I guess the best intro will be, obviously you've taken B2B startups from Series A to Series E and growing those to like $50 million ARR. So tell us about that work experience, that process, what were the challenges and what were the things that worked for you?
Yeah, well, that was quite a ride. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. I think, and I've been talking to a lot of startups lately, and I think that the challenge a lot are having is that they are pulled in a lot of directions and have a hard time focusing particularly on the demand gen piece to find that growth. So my approach that I've had, I've done this at 5 startups now, I've been at 10 startups, is really honing in on your strategy. So who's your audience? What do you want to say to them? What are the channels you're going to do that at? So at this particular company, I really honed in on that. And over the time I was there, you really build the foundations, get that, going. You can't neglect boring things like email nurture and having chat on your website and just all those standards, right? Which a lot of times can get overlooked because marketers are pulled in a lot of directions. So you have to keep that focus. And then I think a real key to help with scaling is being truly aligned with the sales team. That I find is a thread that comes up over and over again, is having that alignment and understanding how you're going to go to market together. And then at that particular company, once I did have sort of the foundations and sales alignment, you start looking for what can you add into the mix. Your company's growing, your goals are getting bigger, the numbers you need to hit are getting bigger. So then you start layering on what are the things that make sense for this company to start adding on to help them grow.
Oh, okay. So for building those GTM teams, which components or which specific skills that you think are a must, and how do you develop those skills and teams over the period of time?
Yeah, I think, again, back to that strategy. So thinking about what you really need to focus on, because at startups, the resources are not unlimited. So if you are, for example, targeting the enterprise, your strategy is going to be different than targeting mid-market. So you want to think about, if I'm targeting the enterprise, maybe I want to have a Gartner subscription and I want to have really heavy ABM motions with the sales team. And I want to have these I want to do more elaborate kind of custom field events and that kind of thing. So that determines now who you're hiring to support that decision that you're making. Versus if you're mid-market, going after the mid-market, you might not want, an analyst relations person on your team to cover that. You might want somebody who's more, good at, just writing or doing webinars or other things that are more, in line with what the mid-market would want. So I think you always have to come back to what you're trying to accomplish and mapping your goals to that.
Okay, that's awesome. So you've mentioned in one of your tweets or one of your LinkedIn messages that traditional demand gen needs an overhaul. What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah. I'm a demand gen person at heart. So I'm all about helping sales build pipeline, generating new logos. Numbers are important. Like I get that. But I think demand gen has really been pushed into a place where the rest of, like when you're talking to CFOs and CEOs, they really want ROI, like program by program. And I don't think that's the right way to look at it. I think you need to look at the numbers more holistically, because in reality, you're not getting someone to fill out a form and then go into your pipeline. Usually it's a lot more work than that. The journey is much different than that. So I think it's just really important to allow some of your budget and some of your resources towards awareness and just building more relationships with your audience before just trying to pull them straight into the pipeline.
Okay, so in terms of, and also read that maybe you talked to the board and you said, okay, we are going to stop Google Ads campaigns.
Yeah.
What was the rationale behind it? Because you pretty much mentioned that you're a demand gen person and you're saying, okay, no more Google Ads.
That's a great question. And it's exactly what I was just saying before, being aligned with your strategy. So in that instance, we were targeting the enterprise, big companies. We knew who they all were. We had information about all of these companies. When you're running Google Ads, you're capturing a lot of noise a lot of the time. And it's expensive, and I didn't need to spend money there. I knew exactly who I wanted to be in front of, and I had tactics to get in front of those companies and those teams. And I had limited resources, right? I had to make choices. So my choice was, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm bringing in things that aren't exactly aligned, and I'm going to focus my resources somewhere else that's a better fit for marketing to the enterprise.
Okay, that's awesome. So you also talk about marketing modes. How are those built?
Yeah. And what I mean by that, a lot of times companies are trying to find, something about their product or data or what they have that really differentiates them, and it makes them kind of, defensible against the competition. And I think when you're talking about demand gen and marketing, especially now entering into, AI being really prevalent, you have to leverage your brand. You have to be willing to, take a stance with your brand. It doesn't have to be really dramatic, but you have to have a point of view. You should be using your executives and, subject matter experts in your company, because you're still marketing to people. And so I think from the marketing side, the way that you can, differentiate besides your, positioning and all those other things you're doing is really building part of your marketing engine around showing who your company is, showing the people, so your audience feels like they can connect, they understand what you're about, they know what this company and this brand is about, and no other company can replicate that. It's just completely not something that can be done. So it's a really good way to make sure you stand apart from the other brands, because buying software is very hard and confusing. And so that's one way to help you differentiate.
Okay, so given this current scenario of this dry up of these fundings and all of that, how would you convince somebody to invest on brand, or on the awareness? Like what should be the strategy over there?
Yeah. And it's not easy, because again, there's a lot of pressure for marketers to just prove ROI. There is data, and I have personal experience doing campaigns and running marketing orgs where and there is data to lean into it, that running awareness, it lifts everything else you're doing. So that means when the sales teams are reaching out, they're having better results. Marketing campaigns get better results. And there is data behind it that shows that as well. So I think you have to, I'm big on piloting and testing. So I think if you can start somewhere and carve out some of your budget for doing that, and again, being very focused and targeted and running awareness campaigns against maybe some collaboration with your BDR team on outreach, and you can show we're getting better results here, where we're kind of making sure this audience, we have some mind share, they know who we are, they've been a little educated by marketing. We're getting better results there than just letting the BDRs cold call accounts that we haven't been trying to engage with.
Okay, that's awesome. So let's just talk about ABM in specific. And I sort of read one of your code, which says marketers should never commit to an MQL goal. What should be the alternative?
Yeah. Well, my rationale for that, MQLs get a lot of hate mail, I think. But my rationale for that is really, it ties to quality, right? So if you keep pushing up an MQL, as marketers, we know that we can generate a lot of MQLs and they may be garbage. And that's not the point. The point is like the real ideal scenario, which is not realistic, but if I generate 100 MQLs, BDRs can book 100 meetings. Not reality, but in a way, that's what you're trying to strive towards, right? So pushing a team to just keep pumping up numbers and not looking at quality is not really the right way to do it. So the reason I think marketing shouldn't so much commit to an MQL number is that they should commit to actually something further down the pipeline. It could be booking meetings, and then they have the ability to, improve the quality, lower the number if that makes sense and fits with the resources. But if that's converting higher, that's better than just pumping up the MQL number. You're kind of setting the wrong incentive when you do that.
Okay, so let's just maybe get deep dive into some use cases. Okay, so maybe given this scenario, so this is 23, 24, all that's going around. You're sort of like heading demand gen for this mid-sized company. How would you structure your ABM? What should be top, middle, bottom?
Yep.
And tactics that used to work might not work. What would your strategy be over here?
Yeah. So to me, ABM, it's gone through its own journey. It used to, originally it was really thought only for the biggest of the enterprise, targeting and running ABM like that. To me, ABM really should be all of marketing at most SaaS, B2B SaaS companies. And that's because you should really be honed in on who you're trying to sell to. Coming in, I look at it sort of in these three bubbles. There's sort of the full group of your ICP. That could be any number of accounts. And you're thinking of resource allocation here, right? So your big pool of accounts, maybe you allow so much budget and you're just running some awareness campaigns, doing, obviously they get invited to webinars and they can be a nurture and all those things that don't cost more money to run. And then there's sort of your core accounts that you can just, you working out with the sales team how to prioritize this, but they could be from a certain vertical you're targeting, a certain persona. You want to figure out some core group. Now you're putting more resources there. So you might be running direct mail. You might just be doing field events that you want to get them to. There's more attention and more resources there. Then the smallest bubble, if you will, is really where you're overlapping with sales most directly. So ideally you have insights, right? We know that there's the dark funnel and there's all these insights and intent data that we have now. So hopefully you're layering that in. This is kind of where the more of the MQL or MQA marketing qualified accounts are coming in, and that you're working in lockstep with sales on what to do with those. So it's your smallest pool. It's where sales knows, it's accounts, you've agreed on the ICP. These are accounts that they want to be working. And that's kind of all they should be working. You shouldn't be out of sync with marketing doing one thing and sales doing another. So really collaborating there, again, spending most of your resources and time trying to get those accounts into the pipeline. So that's how I kind of look at it overall.
And obviously for building all of this full funnel campaigns, you need content. And how will you structure your content strategy? How will you build that for like the top layer, the middle and the bottom?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think of content as it's ongoing. It's a long play. You want to really know that you can engage your audience. When you're thinking of kind of the awareness stages, you're not so much worried about yourself. You're more worried about what's important to my audience, whoever they are. If they're CFOs, it doesn't have to even relate to my product. I just start wanting to get CFOs to know who I am. So I'm building content that's more about issues that are important to them, right? And then as we're moving through the funnel, it's getting more and more specific about my offering and my company. So I think of it like that. And then I'm huge on repurposing because, even with the advent of AI helping us pump out more content, I think you still just really get a lot out of leveraging content. People want to consume in the formats that they want to consume it in. So you can pretty easily repurpose and get content out in all different kinds of formats. So yeah, no grand scheme or any earth-shattering news there. It's pretty standard, but I do think it's really important, and you have to cover that off for your audience.
Okay, so given, let's just talk about content more. So there is this, so there are gated and ungated content pieces for lead generation. Which one do you prefer?
Yes. Okay. Well, we have to kind of back up to the buyer's journey a little bit. So, a lot of times people will ask me, how do you define the buyer's journey? How do you figure it out? And I'm here to tell you, the buyers have told us the journey, and they don't want vendors to be part of it. They want to come to our sites. They want to do their own research, and they want to find content on their own. So to me, if you have a prospect that's come to your website, I want to educate them as much as possible with as few barriers as possible. So I lean towards giving away the content as much as I can. Sure, maybe there's something super high value. Obviously, the point you want to connect with them is around chat or request a demo or book a meeting or something like that, for sure. But if you've gone through the work and you have somebody to your website, I don't believe in throwing up roadblocks for them to learn more about my company and my product.
Okay. So in terms of channel strategy, which channel, which medium do you feel like is the best suited for ABM specifically?
Yeah. Oh, it's a good question. Again, it's a resource related, but a lot of times I think, back to running some brand awareness. So maybe that's through targeted LinkedIn ads or something like that. Doing, webinars, podcasts, things like that, again, where you're engaging with your audience, those are a little bit heavier lift, but I think at some point you have to get to that stage. Field events, I think, are great for ABM. There's nothing like really getting your audience together and hopefully customers and future customers in the same room to share and get to know each other. I think those are really sort of the key ways. And again, you find when you go back and ask yourself your strategy and what you're trying to accomplish, you need to know where your audience is, and then that's really the best channel to engage with them on.
And now there's a rise of this personality-led growth, and obviously maybe this will impact B2B marketing, but do you foresee this happening, or is it something which might not happen?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've heard a lot of scrutiny about it in the past, but I just think it's the way it's going. Again, you're marketing to people, and when you're talking about a lot of the personas and audiences we look at, you're still marketing to people. They trust certain influencers. They want to learn from certain people. So I just think it makes sense to run influencer programs and make sure you're just getting in front of that audience again. It's just, even creating people within your own company, your subject matter experts, your CEO, whoever it is, that can be that person as well, I think is really a strong thing to do.
And you've also mentioned that like marketers can learn from TikTok and Instagram. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a little bit like what I was just saying, where you're marketing to people, and don't be afraid to have fun, show the brand personality, just show what you're about. You can still do it in a professional way for sure, but I think that again, engaging with those influencers or having somebody in your company who fits the bill there is something that we can learn to do more in B2B marketing, instead of keeping it all buttoned up the way some companies do. You can be professional, but also, be human.
So have you seen any examples of this where it has worked successfully?
Yeah, I mean, there's some CEOs I can think of who are really, engaged on LinkedIn and talk a lot. They're just exposing what they're doing day to day. And I think they're really building up their own following, sharing a lot about their brand. And I think that's a really powerful thing to do.
Okay, that's awesome. So let's just talk about some of the tools. What's your favorite marketing stack? Like, if you have all the options, how would you build it?
I have such a love-hate relationship with software, to be
Okay.
honest.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I mean, the standards, I think you kind of can't go wrong if you're using some of the standards, you know, your Salesforce, your Marketo or HubSpot, your Sixth Sense, there's a lot of good chat tools, data tools. I'm not really like wholly bought into just one or one from each segment in particular, but I do think it's smart if you can use one that is fairly well established because of the support you can get with that. You know, just even from outside of the company itself, but you know, usually there's a lot more resources to help you with that. Yeah, I think there's a tool that I haven't used yet that I would love, which is one that takes away any stress from me about attribution. That would be great. I know there's attribution tools out there, but yeah, having just the data more, having more real insights from data that marketing collects and really understanding attribution, that would be a big headache relief for me.
So are you happy with the Marketo's attribution models that are out there? Does it work for you or not?
I've focused on that at one point and tried to use it pretty heavily. It gives you some insights, but I think a lot of marketing data is still kind of siloed in a lot of ways. So you get a view like in from one perspective, but there's a lot of other things your buyers are doing that you don't have perspective into. So yeah, it's challenging. I don't think there's like anything really perfect just yet.
So obviously all of these tools requires budget, onboarding, trainings, and everything. So somebody who's just starting up, B2B SaaS, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think that's a very wise question because you, as a marketer, you're exactly right. It takes a lot of budget. It takes a lot to implement. It takes a lot to really get software standing up and working the way you need it to. So personally, I scrutinize it a lot. A lot of times, sometimes you have a tool in your stack already that can do what you're trying to accomplish. You just need to learn sometimes more about the tools you have. And also, again, with AI, a lot of our existing vendors are adding lots of new functionality and things that might, again, work without bringing in a whole new vendor. So I think you have to be very thoughtful about it. Not only is it expensive, like you said, it's just a lot of work to stand up and maintain. So what I've said many times, go back to your strategy. Is it something that you really need to support you in the strategy that you're trying to execute? And I've been in both phases where I've added lots of bells and whistles and tools, and I found it it's just not really necessary a lot of the time. You can really do a lot with the core tools that you have.
And obviously, the landscape has changed a lot with this AI, ChatGPTs, and all of those image tools and that are coming up. I mean, how do you sort of like foresee the usage of that? Obviously, they're not going away, but how do you sort of marketers start using them right away?
Yeah, right now, I think it's still very much about efficiency, right? Cleaning up lists, obviously creating content, building outlines, post video production, and all these kind of things, right? It's a huge help. I think for teams, it's important, you know, AI and our access to it and ability to use it just happened without teams and companies having really any plan or say in how employees were using it. So even at a startup, I think it's great if you can get your team aligned on here are the best practices for our team and how we want to use this, and you know, just set some guidelines for what you want to do there. And I'm not sure if a lot of companies are doing that just yet, but just giving that guidance to your employees on the expectation and how they should be using it. But I mean, it's a great time saver. It's a great boost to a lot of those repetitious tasks. And obviously in the future, I think it's going to be even more. And I do think, like we were talking about vendors earlier, it's important to just keep in touch with your existing vendors because they're coming out even faster with more functionality and tools because of it. And I think it's a great time to try to leverage those.
So how do you foresee this GTM's team being structured down the road? Is it like still going to be very human specific heavy, or is it like, okay, I just need one guy and that's a bunch of tools?
Yeah. I mean, who really knows? I'm not sure, but I think that at least for the foreseeable future, there's still going to be a lot of human involvement, right? I mean, we've all gone in and used ChatGPT and have it create some content for us, and it's always a little askew, right? It doesn't quite nail things, and I think that will go on for a while, not forever. And there's still something about developing a strategy and about running a field event or running certain campaigns and things that just will take that human element. So who knows, it's going to accelerate fast, and I'm excited about what's going to change, and we'll see. I'm not sure I can predict AI.
Okay. So there is content and there is content experience. Right? Some people read, some people watch videos, and somebody long form, short form, and all of that. So, I mean, in your experience, and obviously things might have evolved, what's the best experience that you can give, maybe on LinkedIn specifically?
Yeah. Well, I think we can kind of tie together all the things we've talked about here, right? So one is repurposing content, and that's just the reason why people prefer consuming content in different ways. I do think video you have to be investing in video. I think that's just a given. And that's also something you can repurpose quite a bit. You can use that on obviously LinkedIn. YouTube is its own kind, comes up in search. It's something that's a great place to share content. So if I had to really pick one, it would be video, but I think really repurposing and leveraging your content for all different channels is really what you need to be doing.
Okay, and then let's just talk about some of the KPIs. Which one are your favorite? Like, let's just talk about the top and middle and bottom specifically. How would you sort of track, okay, this is working on top, this is working on middle, and this is obviously bottom is easier, but
Yeah. I think of it a little bit like the marketing team is focused on certain metrics or dives into certain metrics. And as you know, we have no less than 1,000 to look at, and marketers can get very lost in looking at their data and their metrics. And I think when you're digging into this as a marketer, again, if you're knowing your audience and who you're trying to pull into your pipeline, you want to really match up the engagement you're getting to your audience and make sure you're connecting with the right people, that you are increasing your engagement across the audience you're trying to get to. So you do that through looking at where you're running. If you're running specific campaigns to accounts, like, are you increasing your reach across there? So marketers can get very lost in all of that, but I think it's important to make sure you're moving the needle there. And then mid-funnel is where I start thinking about, how am I getting meetings booked from what I'm bringing in? What's the feedback I'm getting from the BDR team? So that's an important data point. And then obviously it's like bringing in the pipeline and the new logos into the company, which we all talk about a lot. And that's, the key, and why marketing and demand gen is there. So very important metric. And again, those early metrics are marketing centric. And then I think you move more into your collaboration with sales, and then the rest is really kind of for the executive team. So I think about my audiences like that, and where I'm measuring along the way.
And okay, that's awesome. So you've talked a bit about learning. The B2B marketers have a lot to learn, and most of it happens on the job. So what are your opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, I as a marketer, and I've talked to other marketers who feel this way, there's a perception amongst everybody in the company that they know how to do marketing, right? It's just that kind of role where it can be pretty visible, and people think they know what to expect from it and what it's like to do marketing. But I think when you step in as a marketer, it's much different than it looks from the outside. And you, as a marketer, you have to be willing to just problem solve, learn as you go, not be afraid of feedback, to just keep growing, because it's not really a disciplined, learning that you get in college about how to be a B2B marketer. So you have to really apply a lot of your soft skills to the role and learning how to do it. So I think it's a challenge in that way. And if you can, if you're early in your career, if you can find a good mentor, I think that is just a huge help, and really can help jumpstart your career.
Okay, so if somebody has to refine their ICP, what questions they should really ask themselves?
Yeah. Oh, I love this. I'm big on ICP. I think it just drives so much of the marketing engine. hopefully you have some data to help inform you on how to refine the ICP. So if you're finding obviously that you're, like we just talked about metrics from early in the funnel, if you are running and have tested different campaigns to say a healthcare audience and you're not getting traction there, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to cut them out of your ICP, but it means maybe is your positioning right? Is your messaging resonating with them? You might want to test and push that a little bit more. But really, if you think that's not going to work, the data should tell you to cut them out. And if you're looking to bring in another segment that you think you want to include in your ICP, I just believe in testing that out as well and kind of making sure you can get those wins. I'm big on setting yourself up to win. So whatever you can do to find ways to get traction and start getting those early wins, I love building on that.
Okay, and what are your opinions on the positioning? I believe the B2B marketers do struggle with a lot of this. So any thoughts and opinion there?
100%. It is a struggle. It's something that I think is very easy to get wrong, but you really have to get it right. And there's a lot of good resources now. There are experts who can really help help marketers really hone in on how to develop positioning. I think it has so much influence on all the rest of what happens across the sales and marketing function. It's really critical. And it is not easy to do, but I think if you need to get help, you have to try to, get somebody in to help you figure that out. Again, there's a lot of good resources to do that with as well.
Okay, and do you believe that if I have the ICP and the positioning right, I can just feed it into GPT and I'll get the messaging out of it?
No. You might get some ideas. You might get some good ideas, but I think, it still takes, again, that human thinking through and probably running some testing to make sure you really nail it and get it right.
So in terms of testing, do you believe it's more of a marketer job, or is it more of like sales need to lead that and then give the information back to marketing?
All of it. I think, marketers can definitely have the capability to run testing and not to just make their marketing efforts all about testing, but there should be room for that. And getting sales is talking to prospects and potential customers all the time, so they have great insights. And if you can use tools like Gong, etc., to listen to calls, there's so much for marketers to learn in there. So I love doing that. There's talk about messaging and campaign ideas. Listening to sales calls is a great way to spark ideas and figure out new things to try.
And how do you break the gap between sales and marketing? Like any tips, tools?
It's a lot. I mean, there could be a whole class on this, but I think in short, for this conversation, again, back to ICP. ICP isn't just something that is created once and sits there and it's just done by marketing and then they're marketing to them and then sales is doing something else. So being very aligned around the ICP and again, aligning at those tiers, the effort that you're putting towards them and making sure that is in conjunction with sales. I think a big thing is both teams just being open to collaboration and giving feedback and testing things across teams. I think that's huge. I mean, some teams don't want to try the suggestion of the other team, and I think that's a miss. And there should just be openness around that. And then also setting goals together is huge. Sometimes, again, back to the MQL, marketers are just trying to drive MQLs and sales is trying to drive pipeline. So that's a miss, right? You need to be on these goals together. So that's why I like booking meetings and driving pipeline and new logos. And then planning together on how to map and actually execute to that. And then if you're having a weekly or monthly kind of RevOps kind of meeting, you can talk about where things are working, not working, how you can help each other kind of, fix things and just improve. And I think if you're just doing that, again, with an open mind and part with the mindset of having a partnership, it does so much for your results. You kind of lift the results of each other's team.
Okay, that's awesome. So I guess I've actually asked a lot of questions. So anything that I've missed, do you want to add?
Oh, let's see. I mean, we did cover a lot of ground, and I think just in summary, again, at a startup, it's so important to be able to stay focused. It's important to know your strategy, communicate that internally, and make sure you have buy-in. And that for marketers helps reduce a lot of the extra noise and requests that they tend to get bombarded with. It doesn't stop it altogether, and you are there to support the other teams as well. But I think if you can have a sharp strategy and communicate that, you're halfway there.
Okay, that's awesome. So I guess I actually learned a lot. So I'm very very excited to have this published. So again, thanks a lot. For you to come on the talk and share it with, where can people find you?
Yeah, and this was great. I really enjoyed the conversation as well. If people want to find me, LinkedIn, I hang out there quite a bit. So happy to connect with folks there. That's where I usually am.
Okay, so again, very informative, and really thank you. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.